I am an actuary.
I am an actuary.
I am an actuary.
Welcome to the We Are Actuaries podcast, where you'll meet leaders who use their actuarial powers to solve a range of problems and make a real difference. I am your host, Julia Lessing, and I'm a qualified actuary based in Australia. I help actuaries develop communication and leadership skills to build great actuarial careers. So settle in, learn from the best, and be inspired. Today we're talking about life after actuarial exams. It's a major milestone in every actuary's career. But what happens after you've sat your last exam? Or perhaps more accurately, what happens after you've found out that you've passed your last exam? For many actuaries, myself included, it was a huge relief. But for others, the transition can be harder than expected. So, what strategies can help you to navigate this big professional transition? Joining us for this discussion is Jeremy Keating, founder of Price Writer. Jeremy qualified as an actuary in 2013 and has leveraged his pricing expertise to write a book and build a thriving program that supports hundreds of members to grow their careers and navigate the challenges of the insurance pricing field. Jeremy, welcome to the show.
Hello, Julia. Thank you very much for having me on the show today.
Thank you for being my guest, Jeremy. I'm so excited about this topic because whilst I found it very relieving to be through those final exams, I know that you found the shift from being a student to a qualified actuary was a bit more challenging than you expected.
Yeah, I did. So I was very proud to have finished the exams and relieved as well. I'm glad I had finished it. But actually, I found it quite a difficult transition. My life hadn't particularly changed, but I felt like I should be different. I felt like
Mm,
my life should be different.
mm.
And also, I felt this sort of change of identity quite difficult to deal with. And also that all that extra time. I know people think that should be great, but actually, as I'll talk about in a minute, I found that transition quite difficult.
That's really interesting. And I'm sure you're not alone there, Jeremy. So I'm looking forward to hearing a bit more about your story and also what you found helpful to navigate that change, because it is a big transition for most of us, whether it's as expected or not. But first, Jeremy, I'd like to ask you my question, the question that I ask all of my guests, and it's this. Jeremy, how do you use your actuarial superpowers to make a difference in the world?
Yeah, so I think my main superpower is dealing with uncertainty. So I wouldn't say I'm a risk averse person. I would say learning to be an actuary really taught me skills and knowledge for dealing with uncertainty. Actually, the last job I had where I was pricing, so I was a leader in pricing, I was responsible for the premium on about £1 billion worth of GWP. So it's not really a risk averse job. It's not something you can really do if you're nervous about risk.
Mm.
So I feel like I'm okay with uncertainty and risk, and I do use that quite often in my work, in my business. So as an example, we are currently selling conference tickets. We've got a conference up in a few weeks' time. And I was using my chain ladders that I learned back when I did actuarial, yeah, to sort of forecast how we would sell our business and when it would come in and how it would track and so on. And there is an element of faith in this as well.
Yeah.
So dealing with uncertainty can be about being faithful. And I found we are pretty much tracking to the same progression we had for our last conference. So it's good to know that these skills actually do work in the real world.
That's so good. I really think that the skills we learn as actuaries are so transferable to running a business. I've been running Guardian Actuarial for nearly 10 years now, and yeah, I've got spreadsheets and percentages and factors and rules of thumb and conversion rates and things that I've gathered over the years. And they are very transferable skills, aren't they?
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely. I think it is very transferable, especially running a business is full of uncertainty, and you
of
do have
course.
to be able to deal with that.
Yeah, yeah, and you have to be comfortable with that risk and how to manage it. So,
Mm,
yeah.
definitely.
Excellent. Okay, so dealing with uncertainty, that's a fantastic use of your actuarial superpowers. So let's talk about today's topic a little bit. I'm curious to hear more about what that was like for you when you made that transition. Can you tell us a bit about your experience of being newly qualified?
Yeah, so I felt a little bit like there's an actor called Richard Dreyfuss. He's in Jaws,
Mhm.
and he talked about how he very much enjoyed the process of becoming an actor, but he never really enjoyed being an actor. Now, it's not that extreme for me, but I do understand what he meant by that. So,
Mm.
passing exams can be a bit like a drug. It's kind of similar to getting texts from your friends or that sort of special person you like in the start of a relationship, or even just getting engagement on social media. It really, we like it. And as maths people, it's pretty normal for us to get into the habit of living a world where we look at the answers at the back of the book and we're like, oh, I got them all right. And I'm
Yeah.
part of the group. I'm clever. And people regularly tell us we are clever as well. We get back our papers from our teachers and they've got lots of ticks on and there's A's and we
Yeah.
feel that. We like that.
Mm.
It's a really nice feeling. And I do think that's a lot of why some of us, possibly many of us, go into actuarial and follow this route because it's a nicely laid out path where we have these regular periods of achievement and everyone congratulates us. And there's sort of these dopamine hits we get. It makes us feel clever. People say that we're clever. We kind of feel like we matter. We're beginning to become part of the actuarial group and we're feeling this acceptance and welcoming that comes with that.
Mm.
But it can be a bit hard. So once the rush of excitement from passing that kind of big finish line has worn off, subsided somewhat, it can be a little bit like when you break up with someone.
Mm.
So there's a part of life for me that just abruptly ended, which was about the studying and the results day and the excitement. And I wasn't getting that regular congratulations anymore. I didn't have that sort of satisfaction coming in. And I wasn't on this nice, clear track anymore. It wasn't like, oh, I do this next exam, then I get these letters, work will pay me this much more, then I do this one, this is how many study days I have to do. And it's this lovely, planned out life for one. Particularly, I'm someone that likes a schedule, and that particularly works well for kind of how I work as a person. So
Mm.
it's this sort of loss of this clear track. And as I kind of alluded to, I think a lot of us that go into this have needs to feel like the world thinks we're intelligent. No judgment. It's just what we are like as people. We like that. We like that the world feels we're like that. And that can be interesting culturally for us as well, because our teams are very much people that work in that way. And also, particularly people that go into actuarial and professions, they're often people that want to be accepted into a body. Also, people that work for big companies are similar. We want to be accepted into a big group. So we're sort of ticking the boxes as our personalities very much on this.
Mm.
And I think that when you finish studying, you've got this kind of loss of enjoyment from studying. You're no longer going to the back of the book and finding the answers and going, yay, I got that right. You've got a lot of new things to deal with. It might be management, it might be dealing with your organization in a different way, it could be changes in your own life, but it's not that same hit. It's not like, oh, I got all the answers right. And in order to become an actuary, it's very common for us to do things like put our lives on kind of on hold for several years. We might delay families, we might set travel goals for the future. Sometimes, particularly towards the later exams, we might feel we're living in a limbo zone. I do know it's a little bit sad, but I do know a couple of people whose marriages actually split during studying or soon after qualification. In fact, slightly more common to be soon after qualification.
Wow.
And I can kind of see why. There's sort of an isolation that can grow in people's lives. You're so busy with studying, you lose time for people, you might give up hobbies and social
Mm.
time. So that's sort of the general thing. If I bring this back to myself, so when I qualified, at the time, my wife was a secondary school teacher. For anyone else who's married to a teacher, they'll know that teachers work extremely hard. And it's fairly common for actuaries to be married to teachers. I would say it's sort of teachers, accountants, or other
Other
actuaries are
actuaries,
pretty
yeah.
much, yeah, that's pretty common. So she was a teacher, and we had quite a good routine. So on a Sunday, we'd do something in the morning, and then we'd study in the afternoon, well into the evening. She'd work on her work, all her marking and everything. And then when I qualified, this kind of nice routine was quite disrupted.
Oh,
I would say, for anyone that likes Douglas Adams, the author of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, he describes something called the long dark tea time of the soul. So it's a period of listlessness that sets in about 4 p.m. on a Sunday when you've got nothing to do.
mm,
So I became quite broody all of a sudden. So that was quite a sudden change for my wife. So we'd always talked about having a family, but we'd been putting it off because of this and that for several years,
mm.
including because I was studying. So now I'm like, let's have a baby out of almost nowhere. So
Yep.
of course that's quite a change of gear for her. And I was quite, I really wanted to. I was sort of in my mid 30s at the time. It really mattered to me just all of
Mm,
a sudden.
mm.
So I hadn't spoken to my best friend for about 4 years. That's not very healthy either. Just we'd lost contact. So I was just so taken up with studying. Now, what did I do about these things? So I obsessively dieted for a bit. I was like, oh, I should lose weight. I should be much more healthy. So I was going to the gym every day. I went crazy about learning French. So I'm not naturally a languages person, but I'm someone that loves a genuinely hard challenge. So
Okay.
I was like, brilliant. I will become brilliant at French. I've learned French pretty regularly for now over 10 years. I'm still not very good. But I enjoy doing it, so that's what
Yeah.
matters. It's something I
Yeah.
enjoy doing. Um, I found that these hobbies didn't really relate to my life and work, though. They weren't helping me at work. I wasn't getting better at my job. And
Mhm.
when we do the actual exams, we do it because we want to be better at our jobs. So I had this need in my life that just wasn't being matched by the things I was trying to do.
Right.
And, final couple of things I'd say as well. I was now expected to go into the office 5 days a week. And I can't imagine something worse for people like us than going into an office 5 days a week. It's not the kind of people we are. So I'm a very people focused person, but I'm also an introvert, and many of us are introverts. So I get very worn out by dealing with an office, especially open plan ones where you're just walking around in front of 1,000 people all of the time. That can be quite draining. And our work is very focused and deep work, so we don't really deal well with people asking us questions all of the time.
All those
So I
interruptions.
found that quite hard. Oh, sorry.
All those interruptions.
Yeah, exactly. So I found that quite hard. But the worst thing is, and this is the really hard thing, the exams didn't really equip me for my actual job. Not anymore. It was fine when I was doing technical work, but by now I was leading a department and I was not trained and taught for that. And imagine that's very demoralizing. I've spent the best part of sort of I mean, if you go all the way back to A levels and things, I'd spent years and years studying, and then I was doing a job I couldn't do. So that's really I found that really hard. So I'm leading it round to kind of my advice, if I can be take sort of a little bit of sort of arrogance from it, my kind of advice for all professional institutes, so not just actuarial. I think they should make a huge fuss over people that qualify. So I think the police and the military really get this right. It shouldn't just be like hour-long ceremonies. People should have whole days of really significant events. They should feel like important people came to them. We want people to feel like they're $1 billion. And, I remember receiving an email telling me I needed to do a professionalism course. I got another one telling me I needed to now do CPD, most exciting thing in the world. And
Yep.
yet there was a ceremony, but it was sort of an hour-long thing. And I'll be honest, it felt like it was something people thought they should do.
Right.
I didn't feel like it was something people really wanted to do.
Mm,
And I just think our new fellows events, they should really be the absolute centerpiece of the actuarial year.
mm,
Everyone should know when they are. They should be important to all of us.
mm.
And now I've got some advice for workplaces as well. I think we shouldn't just go out for drinks as kind of the celebratory rite of passage. It's just a bit deflating. Not everyone drinks. It's not very good culturally. And I'll be brutally honest, the pricing director did not need me to buy him a drink. I had a lot of fun, but it's just not, I don't feel like it was something that made me feel special and like I'd achieved something. Buying drinks for everyone is not necessarily something that makes me feel special. So I just think make a really big fuss over your new fellows. Take them to the industry events, make them feel like they're part of the group now, and show them that they're really valued and we like them, and really show that their skills, the people they've become, are valued. And I've just got a final one about the Institute. So I'm just going to hold up. So most people that watch me regularly will know that I've usually got my certificates on the wall behind me. So
Yep.
this one is my certificate for my degree from my university.
Okay. So for our listeners who can't see, you're holding up your university degree.
I am, yeah. Sorry, people would be listening to this. Yeah. So I'm holding up my university degree. It's a lovely, colourful,
Beautiful.
certificate.
Lovely, lovely frame. It's very professionally presented.
It really is. It's an A, like an A tier certificate. It's gorgeous. The signatures are still readable.
Lovely.
It's really lovely and colourful. It really makes you feel like you've achieved something. This one's about, it's old. It's old. So that's my university one, and my actuarial one is here, and it's just the it's a nice enough certificate, but the signatures have actually faded over time. It looks like they were done quickly with a biro. It's all one sort of mono color for me, and it's just when you receive this, you want to be like, wow, look at this thing I achieved, and it's a bit like, it's not really brilliant. So I would kind of give that a C tier. It's saved from D tier because my favorite color is blue, and it's mostly blue. So I just don't think it's as good as my uni certificate. I think we should give people medals and trophies and
Medals and
shields and other
trophies.
shiny objects. You want something you put on your desk or behind you on Zoom that says to the world, look at the thing I did.
Yeah.
And I just think that would be so much better. I think it would have been better for me to really feel like everyone was clapping and saying, yeah, well done.
So interesting, Jeremy, because everything that you've just said really resonates with me. That very structured process of getting qualified, it's a bit of a choose your own adventure, combining the exams to become qualified in whatever specialty you want to qualify in. And then you get qualified, and then we say, here's your certificate, off you go and do your CPD. And as you know, I'm now the head of lifelong learning here at the Australian Actuaries Institute. And that's one of the things we're grappling with. How do we bring our new fellows into the profession and make them feel really welcome in a way that makes sense for them? And also, incorporate them into the profession, take them under our wing and get them involved and connect them with others and help them to navigate what's a much less structured pathway after qualifying, isn't it? We don't have that clearly laid out set of hurdles or exams to pass. And I love the way I've never thought about it like this, but I love the way you describe those exams as kind of dopamine hits. The pass, we've passed one. And even when you fail them, which invariably we all do at some point, there's still that camaraderie, that sort of sense of, but they're actuarial exams, and people put their arms around you and say, oh, don't worry, it's character building. We've all been there. This is part of the process. And there's still sort of a sense of camaraderie and collegiality around that because we're part of something bigger than us.
Hi, I'm Bill Morella, CEO of Actex Learning, and I'm excited to introduce our latest publication, Aspiring Actuarial Leaders, The Modern Manager's Toolkit by Julia Lessing, a qualified actuary and executive coach with over 20 years of experience. This book is packed with practical strategies, real-world insights, and expert guidance to help you navigate the challenges of modern management. Whether you're a new manager or aiming for executive leadership, this resource will equip you with the skills to thrive. Get your copy today at actexlearning.com and take the next step in your actuarial career.
I think that's exactly right. I think when you're a student, it very much feels like that. And yeah, when you come out into the big wide world of being a fellow and things aren't laid out for you anymore as a path, and when you achieve things or fail, which I'll talk about sort of when we get there, but yeah, it feels very different.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So you've talked about the importance of doing something more momentous when people qualify, giving them a trophy or a medal or something, sort of making a big fuss, not just going out for drinks, but making a big fuss of that
Yeah.
achievement. Talk to me a bit about what happens on the other side of that. You talked about the that gap on a Sunday night where you were no longer studying, but your wife was still marking. How did you navigate the time on the other side of getting qualified? What was that like for you?
Yeah, definitely. I think the main thing for me is that realizing I could learn about things other than actuarial science. And I found a new purpose really in my life as a teacher, somebody that did training, as a leader, and as a father as well. So those are the things that helped me to learn I had a different identity now. I wasn't a student actuary, I wasn't
Okay.
studying that. I
Yeah.
could do my own things. I did a lot of reading. So it's always been my main interest is reading books. And I was now sort of free to return to doing a lot of reading.
Mm.
And not just in English, I did read quite a few books and comics in French as well.
French. Excellent.
Yeah, yeah, very good. They've got quite a large culture. I mean, we have in the UK, but it's really bigger in France. A
Okay.
lot of similar to Japan, there's a lot of comics. I learned lots of other subjects, and particularly I realized I could learn lots of things that were relevant for work
Mm.
and also for my life as well. So I did a lot in data science and statistics, which I'll be honest, I found a lot more useful for GI pricing. I've
Okay.
always done GI pricing, or nearly always. Then I found a lot of the life assurance and pension syllabus that I'd learned for the actuarial exams was. So I found the data science and statistics much more useful. I learned to write R, Python, SQL. I got very good at SAS as well. So it's back when SAS was still something people learn on maths.
Mhm.
There's also a bunch of other coding languages I can do.
Yep.
So I took to watching a lot of YouTube, and I still do. I will wander about the house with YouTube playing pretty much all of the time,
Really?
as long as it's not annoying my family too
Yeah.
much.
Okay.
But yeah, and I was just free. I could learn just any subject I wanted to. So I did a lot on business, love history,
Mhm.
computers, IT, physics. I've got a special interest in astrophysics and astronomy. None of these things are really related to actuarial science, but they actually, a lot of things are useful for work, or at least useful for life and at sort of developing skills and having things to talk about and interests and
Mm.
things.
Mm.
We moved to France. So my wife and I moved to France. So I went and did a new job over in France, and we actually had my daughter out there. So we did have a
Oh,
baby.
wow. You did?
Yeah, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, learning to live in a different culture, isn't that a big challenge? Like that really, you want dopamine hits, that really sort of feeds into it. And I've got a lot of respect for people that move abroad because even simple everyday things that you get totally used to, like posting a letter, become an interesting challenge.
Really?
Yeah, definitely.
Mm.
I mean, just things, even going to bed when you're not necessarily great at the language and
Mm.
just things work differently. So you think to yourself, you post in the UK, you post a letter by take it to a red post box, pop it inside. And it's just strange in other countries how things work in different ways that you don't expect and little nuances about things, even which shops you go to for things are different. Now
Okay.
I've got a funny language barrier example. So I quite like the name Ponder, which is a character in a book, actually. It's a bit of a silly name, but I was like, oh, we could call our daughter Ponder. So I went to work and we always had lunch every day in France. Very part of the culture. You have
At
lunch with the
work.
people you work with.
Right.
Yeah, really lovely. So I was like, oh, I'm thinking about calling my daughter Ponder. And everyone found it funny. I was like, why is that funny? And I think it was Alex was like, ponder is to when a chicken sits on an egg.
Oh, wow.
It means to hatch an egg.
The hatch
So
and
which I understand where we get ponder is into sort of
Mm.
think aimlessly. Yeah, so it kind of makes sense. But yeah, so my daughter is called Clementine, which
Not Ponder.
not Ponder. No, Clementine works nicely in both languages.
Yeah.
So I did a totally different job in France. So I had been head of a department. It was a very high pressure role. And when I came back to the UK, I actually did a similar job, and I found it quite easy,
Okay.
which time teaches us a lot of things ultimately. But when
Mm.
I was in France, I was still in insurance pricing, but my role was much about conferences, training. I did a lot of travel. I worked with pricing teams all over the world to build their skills and their teams and so on. It was a very, very people-focused job. And it was really how Price Writer started. Because what I do with Price Writer now is actually pretty similar. It's conferences, it's training, it's people-focused. So I got back in contact with old friends. So something I really think people should do if you lose contact with people, do get back in contact with them. It's much easier to reignite an old friendship than to make a new one. Although I did make new friends, so that's not something that comes naturally to me. It's something I've sort of learned to do as an adult. And there are some people I work with in France that they're genuine friends. I do sporadically keep in contact with them, like I do with my uni friends. So it is something that I did, and I found that helpful. I think I also find that learning is my big thing, and I think it is for a lot of us that do the actuarial exams. We're learning people. We like to absorb the world. So just finding a really big range of things to learn, learning useful things, things that you'll actually use in your life, and I think really what's more fun really than learning something new and sort of changing as a person and developing new skills and knowing that you're doing something that you couldn't have done before. So I do think that's right. So sort of developing new skills, new interests. I think, as an example, Julia, I think your book would have really helped me actually. Probably early in this period, probably whilst I was a manager, but still, even when I was in France, I would really have absorbed that and loved it. And being in a people-focused role, I could have really tried out the techniques on so many people in so many different cultures as well, and see how it develops and works. And also, I think people can develop sort of learning pathways. There's lots of online training. I love YouTube, but a lot of people like online training, similar to Price Writer. And it doesn't need to be structured and formal like the sort of 15 hours a week we do when we spend studying. Just learning micro things can really help with that loss of achievement and
Yeah.
structure. You can still get that and feel it, but it's different. So, and I mean, this is what we do largely at Price Writer as well. So we try and offer people that learning that's really applicable to their actual work that they can do as micro learning. So I think ultimately that's what I'm saying. For me, it was about learning and education in a different way to how it had been laid out for me as an actuary.
So even though you felt as though there was all this space and time and you felt a little bit lost, there was no clear pathway or those dopamine hits from exams, you were able to go, well, actually, I'm a curious person and I like to learn. And now I can learn whatever I want to learn rather than learning what I have to learn to get qualified. So, and it sounds like you've really had a very diverse experience of learning. You've learned a lot of very different topics, and you've learned French, you've learned coding languages, you've had children, you've done a whole lot of different things, and that's all added to the richness of who you are and what you know and what you bring to work as well. Whether those things are directly relevant for you in your day job, those things contribute to who you are and how you show up. So, and helped you with that transition from being a student. And you know, you said earlier that you put a lot of things on hold to get through your exams, and I think most of us kind of need to do
Hmm.
that. And so that sort of switch from we put all these things on hold and then we look up and we think, oh my gosh, what do we do with the time? But we've almost forgotten how we used to spend our time before we embarked on those actuarial exams. So I'm so pleased to hear that you found your pathway afterwards, and that you were able to embark on a range of different learning to be able to fill that space, but not just fill the space to enrich your knowledge and skills and enrich your life experience. Very good. All right, so thank you for sharing your story about what it was like for you getting qualified and how you navigated that process. Some really interesting stories about how you've gone through that process, and some great tips and advice for our listeners as well who might be going through that same sort of process too. So I'd like to finish our interview, Jeremy, with one question, and it's this. What's one tip you'd have for actuaries who are finding life after exams a bit harder than expected?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I I would say that for most people, as I've alluded to, it's probably the first time in your life that you are setting your own course. So yes, we choose to do the actuarial exams, but it's something that's very structured for us. We choose to go to uni, but again, it's very structured for us. So we're free of school, we're free of uni, we're free of the actuarial exams. So there's no longer this nicely prescribed route in front of us, and just embrace that. Don't find it difficult, just embrace it. And I would say that the freedom does come with responsibilities. It comes with those responsibilities to yourself and others, but enjoy that freedom. And it's okay not to have these things figured out. So there's no qualification is going to actually come with the answers at the life just doesn't have the answers at the back of the book ultimately. So no qualification is going to give you all of the answers, like you can flick to the back of the book and know what to do in every situation. I don't think many people should leap into another set of multi-years of formal training. I know some people occasionally do, perhaps they do a PhD or something. That perhaps that is right for some people. I don't know everyone's circumstances, but I think for many people, there's really no need. It's trying to fill the gaps that I was talking about, and perhaps it's not the best way to do that. I think we need to realize, and I needed to realize, that actually validation has to come from within as well as without. You kind of have to accept that as we grow and we grow, dare I say the word older, then validation doesn't necessarily come from our partners and our families and colleagues. That isn't the way we can get it for all of our lives. When we're young, that works, but there comes a point where we have to be the people that give the validation, and we can't be the ones asking for it all of the time. So it could be to students, it could be to staff, it could be our own children. As I said before, we need to make a massive fuss over other people's achievements and qualifications and what they do well. So I think I've alluded to lots of learning new things. I've said about setting new goals and new targets. And I do think all of that said, though, there will be some people in your life who are the really supportive people. They will still go on to see the amazing things that you do. The circle of people that give you that regular recognition might diminish, and that's natural. That's okay through life. But if you've got friends and partners who do give you that validation, they do give you that praise, and they realize how special you are, that lasts way beyond qualification, way beyond children. And I just think it's important to keep those people in your life. Don't let go of them. Don't let people drift away. The ones that really make you feel that fill that need for you in your life. And ultimately, I would say to everyone, just keep learning. It's never over. Enjoy learning, enjoy developing as a person. It doesn't have to be a laid out path. You take control of your destiny.
Such great advice, and great advice for our actuarial careers, and also great advice for our lives. Jeremy, thank you so much for your time today. It's been absolutely wonderful hearing your stories and your tips and strategies about how to make that transition from being a student to a qualified actuary. Thanks, Jeremy.
Thanks a lot, Gina. It's been lovely to be on the show as well.
So there you have it, real life stories and practical tips from a leader using their actuarial superpowers to make a difference in the world. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to get in touch, subscribe, leave us a review and share it with your network. You'll find details from today's interview in the show notes below and on our website www.guardianactuarial.com.au. Until next time.